What if I told you that one of Hollywood's most iconic voices deliberately chose not to speak for over a year while preparing for a role, and then, in a twist of fate so cruel it feels scripted, that same actor would later lose his voice to cancer? This is not fiction, this is the extraordinary life of Val Kilmer. In 1991, while filming The Doors, Kilmer refused to break character between takes, communicating only as Jim Morrison would, for months. 2 decades later, throat cancer would steal his voice permanently. The man who once silenced himself for art was silenced by life. Yet in that forced quiet, he found a resonance that would echo louder than any line he'd ever delivered. This is the story of Hollywood's silent phoenix, a man who rose from the ashes of his own voice to deliver his most authentic performance, himself. Before the spotlight found him, before the world knew his name, Val Kilmer was just a boy with dreams bigger than the New Mexico sky. Born on December 31, 1959, in Los Angeles, California, Kilmer's journey to stardom began at the prestigious Juilliard School, where he became the youngest person ever accepted into the drama division at that time. This early achievement foreshadowed the remarkable career that was to come. Kilmer's dedication to his craft was evident from the beginning. He wasn't content with merely playing roles. He inhabited them, transformed into them, became them in ways that left audiences and critics alike in awe. Even as a student, Kilmer refused half measures, often staying in character for days to fully understand the psychological nuances of his roles, a practice that would later define his professional approach. Kilmer's breakthrough came in 1984 with the comedy Top Secret, where his deadpan delivery and surprising vocal talents, he performed all his own songs, hinted at the versatility that would become his trademark. This was followed by Real Genius in 1985, where he brought an infectious charisma to the role of genius physics student Chris Knight, but it was his portrayal of Lieutenant Tom "Iceman" Kazansky in 1986's Top Gun that launched him into the stratosphere of Hollywood fame. The rivalry between Iceman and Tom Cruise's Maverick became the stuff of cinematic legend. What many don't know is that Kilmer embraced method acting to such a degree that he maintained a deliberate distance from Cruise during filming, creating genuine tension that translated perfectly to screen. This wasn't just acting, this was artistic commitment at its most intense. As Iceman, Kilmer delivered one of cinema's most memorable antagonists, not a villain, but a complex character whose dangerous smile and confidence made audiences simultaneously respect and resent him. The versatility of Kilmer's talent became undeniable in the years that followed. His transformation into Jim Morrison for Oliver Stone's The Doors, 1991, was nothing short of extraordinary. Kilmer didn't just play Morrison, he became him, spending countless hours studying Morrison's mannerisms, movements, and vocal patterns. He sang every track in the film himself, capturing the essence of the rock legend with such precision that members of the actual band couldn't distinguish between Kilmer's voice and Morrison's recordings. The Doors keyboardist Ray Manzarek, initially skeptical of the film, reportedly wept upon hearing Kilmer's rendition of Morrison's songs, saying it was like hearing Jim's ghost. This wasn't impersonation, it was channeling, a form of artistic possession that few actors have ever achieved. To maintain this connection, Kilmer would often remain in character between takes, refusing to answer to his own name, speaking only as Morrison would, sometimes for days at a time, a dedication that bordered on obsession but resulted in one of cinema's most haunting performances. Throughout Kilmer continued to showcase his remarkable range. He brought a surprising depth to Bruce Wayne and Batman in Batman Forever, 1995, a role he took with serious consideration for the character's psychological complexities, despite the film's more commercial approach. His portrayal of Doc Holliday in Tombstone, 1993, remains a masterclass in scene-stealing performance, his consumptive, sardonic gunslinger delivering the now iconic line, "I'm your Huckleberry with a lethal charm," that has become embedded in popular culture. Later, he displayed his comedic timing in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, 2005, proving he could handle noir-tinged humor with the same facility as intense drama. Each role was distinct, each character fully realized. Kilmer never phoned in a performance. He gave everything, leaving pieces of himself in every character he portrayed. This dedication came at a cost. Reports of his intensity on set became legendary, sometimes earning him the label of difficult. Director John Frankenheimer famously declared he would never work with Kilmer again after The Island of Dr. Moreau, and there were similar sentiments from other collaborators over the years. But for Kilmer, compromise was never an option when it came to his art. In his 2020 memoir, I'm Your Huckleberry, he addressed these rumors with characteristic honesty. I didn't do enough to explain what I was trying to do or why I was so committed to a role. Behind the headlines about on-set conflicts was simply an artist who refused to settle for anything less than the truth of the character, even when that truth was uncomfortable or inconvenient. Behind the camera, Kilmer's life was equally complex. His 8-year marriage to actress Joanne Whalley, whom he met on the set of Willow, produced 2 children, Jack and Mercedes, whom he considered his greatest joy and achievement. Their presence in his life softened the hard edges of Hollywood's demands, providing an anchor in the sometimes turbulent waters of fame. In a rare 2005 interview, Kilmer spoke of fatherhood with a tenderness that contrasted sharply with his intense public persona. Having children changed everything. Suddenly, the world wasn't about my next role or review. It was about creating moments of joy and stability for these incredible beings who depend on you. Kilmer formed meaningful connections with fellow actors like Cher, who would later play a crucial role during his illness, and Angelina Jolie, relationships that spoke to his depth beyond the characters he played. He maintained a retreat in New Mexico, a 6,000-acre ranch where he could escape the ceaseless demands of celebrity and reconnect with the simplicity that often eludes those in the public eye. Then came 2014, and with it a battle no script could prepare him for. Kilmer was diagnosed with throat cancer, a cruel irony for a man whose voice had been one of his most powerful instruments. Initially, he kept his diagnosis private, even denying rumors about his health. His spiritual beliefs as a Christian Scientist influenced his initial approach to treatment, focusing on prayer rather than medical intervention, a decision he would later reconsider. When he finally sought conventional treatment, the disease had progressed significantly. The treatments were grueling, extensive radiation and chemotherapy that saved his life, but permanently altered his voice. A tracheostomy left him with a hole in his throat and a voice that was barely recognizable as the one that had once captured the essence of Jim Morrison, or delivered Iceman's iconic lines with such precision. For many actors, such a loss might have signaled the end of a career. For Kilmer, it became the beginning of a new chapter, one defined not by surrender but by adaptation and resilience. In his 2021 documentary Val, he shared his journey with raw honesty. Though I healed quickly from the cancer, the treatments left my voice impaired. I'm still recovering, and it is difficult to talk and be understood. The documentary, largely narrated by his son Jack, using words Val had written, offered glimpses into the personal archives of a man who had been filming his own life for decades, revealing the thoughtful, complex person behind the characters we thought we knew. Yet through this vulnerability, Kilmer revealed a strength that transcended his physical limitations. He began exploring other forms of expression, focusing more on his painting and writing, revealing the multifaceted artist that had always existed beneath the actor's persona. Perhaps the most poignant demonstration of Kilmer's indomitable spirit came with his return to the role that had launched him to stardom decades earlier. When Top Gun: Maverick was announced, few expected Kilmer to reprise his role as Iceman, given his health challenges. Yet in a move that perfectly mirrored the determination of his most memorable characters, Kilmer reached out to Tom Cruise and the producers, insisting on being part of this final chapter. Tom Cruise, now a producer on the sequel, was equally determined to include Kilmer, saying, "There was no way I was making this movie without Val." The film's director, Joseph Kosinski, later revealed that despite Kilmer's compromised voice, his energy was still the same and he was very playful and excited. On set, the reunion between Kilmer and Cruise on screen was more than just a nostalgic moment for fans. It was a testament to Kilmer's refusal to let his circumstances define him. The scene between Iceman and Maverick, now both naval commanders, was brief but powerful, made all the more moving by the knowledge of Kilmer's real-life struggle. When Iceman types to Maverick, "The Navy needs Maverick, the kid needs Maverick," the line resonates beyond the fictional world they inhabit. It speaks to legacy, to passing the torch, to acknowledging that our impact continues even when we ourselves must step aside. The art imitated life in ways that were profoundly meta. Iceman communicated through text because of an illness, just as Kilmer himself was forced to find new ways to express himself beyond his voice. In a particularly touching behind-the-scenes moment that later emerged in interviews, Cruise described embracing Kilmer after their scene together, both men overcome with emotion at the full-circle nature of their reunion. For two actors who had begun as rivals both on and off-screen in the original film, to come together as collaborators and friends decades later, one at the height of his powers, the other fighting through profound physical limitations, created a moment of genuine cinematic poetry that transcended the fictional story they were telling. Throughout his health struggles, Kilmer maintained a perspective that reflected his depths as both an artist and a human being. "I have behaved poorly, I have behaved bravely, I have behaved bizarrely to some," he once reflected. "I deny none of this and have no regrets, because I've lost and found parts of myself that I never knew existed, and I am blessed." These words reveal a man who understood that life's value isn't measured in accolades or perfect performances, but in the authenticity of the journey and the courage to embrace all of its complexities. When asked if he missed his old voice, Kilmer responded with characteristic philosophical depth, "I miss certain capabilities, but I've gained different perspectives. Sometimes you have to lose your voice to find your truest sound." In his final years, Kilmer found peace in stepping back from Hollywood's relentless pace. He split his time between Los Angeles and New Mexico, focusing on his art and cherishing moments with his family. Despite being known worldwide, Kilmer was described by those close to him as shy, someone who never fully embraced the label of Hollywood star. Perhaps this is why, despite his diminished voice, his presence remained so powerful, because he had always understood that true artistry comes not from seeking the spotlight, but from finding one's authentic voice within it. In a rare interview given via text-to-speech technology, Kilmer reflected, "I've spent decades learning how to speak through characters. Now I'm learning to speak as myself in different ways. There's freedom in that." Kilmer's artistic expression continued through his paintings, which became increasingly important to him as his acting opportunities diminished. His vibrant, emotional artworks revealed yet another dimension of his creative soul, one that didn't require words to communicate profound truths. He established a studio and gallery in Los Angeles, where his pieces often sold for tens of thousands of dollars. For Kilmer, this wasn't a fallback career, but an extension of the same creative impulse that had driven his acting, the need to express, to connect, to translate human experience into something tangible and meaningful. Val Kilmer passed away at age 65, leaving behind a legacy that transcends his filmography. He showed us that even icons face challenges, and it's how they confront them that defines their true character. In losing his physical voice, Kilmer found a different way to speak to us, through his resilience, his vulnerability, and his unwavering passion for creative expression. He reminded us that while fame may be fleeting, the impact of living authentically endures. What makes Kilmer's story so compelling is not just the roles he played or the battles he fought, but the paradox he embodied. Here was a man who could become anyone on screen, yet remained uniquely himself off it. A performer who could command attention with a whisper as effectively as with a shout. An artist who understood that sometimes the most powerful statements come not from what we say, but from how we choose to live in the face of silence. In perhaps the most profound irony of his career, the man who had once refused to speak as himself while playing Jim Morrison was ultimately forced to find his identity beyond his voice, and in doing so revealed more of his true self than any role had ever allowed. The final scene of Kilmer's life wasn't played out on a movie set, but in the quiet moments of reflection, creation, and connection that filled his days away from the camera. In these moments, he wasn't Iceman or Batman or Jim Morrison. He was simply Val, a man who had lived fully, loved deeply, and faced his greatest challenges with grace and determination. As the credits roll on his remarkable life, we're left not with a sense of loss, but with gratitude for the performances that will continue to move us, inspire us, and remind us of what it means to be fully human in all of our complexity. As Kilmer himself might have put it, drawing from his legendary role as Doc Holliday, he faced his final curtain call with the same unflinching confidence with which he approached every role. "I'm your Huckleberry." And indeed he was, an unexpected gift in an industry often defined by conformity and compromise. Val Kilmer didn't just play heroes, he became one by showing us how to face life's storms with unwavering authenticity and grace. His voice may have faded, but his message endures. It's not about how loudly we speak, but how truthfully we live. In the end, that may be the greatest performance of all.